Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Green. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Green is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview Sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
Why do so many businesses struggle while others seem to explode overnight? Do you wish you had the secret to this type of exponential growth? Now, I've scaled more than 20 businesses to over $100 million, and it's not just luck. In my new book with Mark Tim, Mentor to Millions, you'll learn the repeatable framework I use in all my business ventures for massive success. Order at kevinmentor.com and get over $1,000 in bonuses. Head to kevinmentor.com.
Welcome to the podcast. This is your host, Seth Green. Today, I am going to have a lot of fun, hugely excited to be interviewing someone whose work I have followed for almost my entire career in the marketing industry. So over 20 years, Jennifer Stevens, executive editor for International Living. Jen, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
All right. So we're going to geek out over marketing and all things IL. Let's go back in time a little bit for our folks living under a rock who doesn't know what International Living is. Please tell them.
Yeah, so International Living is a monthly magazine and a huge website. We have lots of conferences and all kinds of resources for people who are interested in living a more international life. But more than that, living a life where they don't have to stress about not having enough money or that sort of thing. Ways that we teach people how they can retire better overseas and do it for less than it would cost them to stay home.
Now, I am sure my own amateur assessment is there are you have an incredible subscriber base. I'm guessing a number of those folk. Do you know what percentage breakdown to people actually go live overseas versus people who just like learning about it?
Well, let me say, anecdotally, yes, but
Yeah.
I would say that the vast majority of people aren't going to pick up their lives and move entirely overseas. We have 500,000 people who follow us on social media. We have 500,000 who get our postcards and about 100,000 who are on our paid list of people. And most of those people aren't going to completely upend their lives and go full-time abroad. But, I really believe wholeheartedly that being an IL person is somebody who's just interested in a wider world, somebody who likes to travel, somebody who wants to travel in interesting ways, somebody who maybe wants to spend a month somewhere, or 3 months somewhere, someone who might want to own a place in another country and have it pay for itself. So they get to go whenever they want to go on vacation. They can send their kids, they can send their grandkids, they can send their parents, whatever it might be. But these are ways to kind of diversify their investments, but also diversify their lives. Our best readers are people who are just excited about the possibilities in the world, whether that's for lifestyle or investment, retirement, whatever it might be. So to answer your question more directly, are most people going to go live abroad full time? No, they're not. But that doesn't mean that you're not selling the dream.
Absolutely. And we're going to do a deep dive on selling the dream in a minute. So for folks who aren't students of marketing history and who don't study the best in the business, how did International Living get started and what has that turned into?
Yeah, so International Living was the first publication started by Bill Bonner when he started the Agora. It was the first Agora publication, and Bill was interested in leading a more international life himself, and the information wasn't out there about how you did it. So he created International Living to show people how it's done. It started out as a newsletter, and it's grown into a magazine over the years. And the core mission, though, has always remained the same, and to this day is very much what Bill envisioned. International Living, the service that International Living would provide, is what we still provide, only now we do it in a much richer way. I mean, it used to be this sort of, it was a small monthly newsletter that went out in the mail, and now we've got a daily e-letter, we've got a monthly magazine, we have huge reports and resources, we run conferences online and also in person. So we've kind of grown it into this multimedia endeavor,
Yes.
which has been great. The internet, but as with lots of information products, right? The internet changed everything, right? It allowed us to reach new people and do it in more interesting ways.
Absolutely. And then, of course, the success of international living certainly spins off into the multi-billion-dollar empire that Agora is.
Right. Exactly. And, we're in a way, I feel like international living is a little bit, so we're tangential in a way now, because we don't do what the rest of Agora does. We do talk about investment, but we are very much focused on the dream we really are. Like when we're selling international living, what we're selling is in some ways, such a hard thing, right? Now, how many people go out, I think like the idea of living overseas, they're, oh, that'd be great. I'd love to do that. And then they go out to their garage and they see all the crap that's in it. And they just think I can't ever get rid of all this stuff. And then they come back inside and they're like, I can't do it. So what we have to do is sort of we got to give people the inspiration to do it, but also the resources they need to do it, and kind of in some ways do it in a stepwise way. So we can say look, that might be your dream. Maybe you're not going to go do it today, but we can tell you how to go to Ecuador for a month, and you can live there for a month. And it'll be, we had told a great story once about a guy who went to Ecuador from Arizona for the summer. So he goes to Ecuador and he lives up in the highlands of Ecuador. And he says, I spent less, all in, my airfare, all of my rent, my day-to-day expenses, everything. I spent less than I spent on my air conditioning in Arizona for those 3 months. And so you don't have to go live somewhere a whole your life. You can live that cool international, have that experience, and do it for a short period of time too.
Absolutely. And obviously there's things like Airbnb that help make that much easier now that didn't exist back when Bill was starting on his typewriter. And you're right, your magazine and publication isn't like 90-something% of the rest of the Agoras. You're not giving stock tips. You're not giving, it's not a hardcore investment or wealth building newsletter, although there are some things every once in a while. I think there's a lot of, I think yours is more dream based than anyone else, right? Because if I am in Tech Confidential or True Wealth or whatever, it's relatively easy for me. I would imagine there is a much higher percentage of those subscribers who go place a stock trade, who go buy something and say, I'm doing, even if they don't do every trade in every portfolio, they're going, I did what I was told, and hopefully I'll make some money, because it's a click of a mouse, as opposed to, you mentioned, getting rid of literally everything and moving to Portugal for the rest of my life.
Right, exactly. And so, I think we really have, we've tried to expand over the years, like the vision of what an IL person, who an IL person is, what that dream is. The dream, I think, ultimately is to lead this more interesting, fuller, more international, more engaging, more adventure-filled life. We all get up in the morning and we all, you take a shower and you go to work and it's 9 to 5. And if you can get your international living coming to you every month, and you open it up and you're hearing these stories about people that have just decided, enough, I'm going to redefine what my life looks like. It's hard to sell that in a way because of all those practical things, like the resistance that as a marketer, the resistance is huge, right? It's not just like, oh, I don't have $10,000 to put into that. It's, so maybe I'll just do it. Maybe I'll just buy $200 worth of that stock today or whatever. Like, it's easier to scale it down. What we've tried to do with international living over the years, because that resistance is huge. You go in the garage, you think, I can't get rid of all this stuff. You say, I can't do this. We try to offer all kinds of other ways you can lead a more interesting life. And core to it is this idea that it doesn't have to be expensive, that anybody can do it. Of course, we would love to have all of our best buyers be all our buyers, right? Like anybody, we want all our buyers to be really wealthy and willing to buy multiple pieces of real estate in interesting markets around the world. Like that would be our dream, but that's not the American population, right? That isn't who everybody is. So we are, of course, always looking for those, higher end readers, but our core reader is just somebody who likes to travel, somebody who's interested in the world, who has, loves the idea of maybe going to spend their summers in Paris. You know what I mean? They might end up, and we do see this among readers who take that small step. I'm going to go for a month. And then they think the next year, I'm going to go for 3 months. And then they're there for 3 months and they think, why do I keep going home? Like, this is so nice. I'm just going to stay. And then they come home and they figure it out. And then they do go and they stay. But yeah, we're not selling instant gratification at International Living. We're selling the dream that you as a regular person could lead a really interesting, engaging life that looks a lot different than your life every day when you're scraping ice off your car window in the winter.
You have a webcam at my house. Yes. You hacked into our ring. So we've talked about selling the dream a number of times. The aspirational aspect of it all. The original sales letter that Bill wrote to sell International Living is one of, at least in the marketing world, most famous sales letters and most successful of all time, which we've used as inspiration for many swipes. Talk a little bit about how the marketing has evolved as the magazine empire and other opportunities have expanded and how things have changed over the years.
Yeah, so we still, that letter doesn't, in its original form, doesn't really work anymore for us. It's just that the world has sort of evolved.
Right.
You know, it used to be that it was really hard to get any information about the world because the internet didn't exist. So we really were bringing information to you that you could not find anywhere else. And that letter, part of the reason that letter worked is because it was just really a crazy, unique idea, right? You can, the outer envelope, you know, the carrier says retire overseas, and you think, really? I could do that? But now, you know, everyone's writing about this. Like, it used to be nobody was writing about it. Now lots of people are writing about it, and they're writing about it online, and any old person in their living room can go log in and find out about it. And so we've had to shift what we do. Our core promise is the same. We are still giving people information about the world that they cannot find anyplace else. And we're doing it because we have people of our own who are based around the world in the countries we recommend, and we are getting them to give us the kind of insider information you can't find online. But we've had to shift a little bit because, you know, it used to be that just the information alone was compelling enough. Now, I think we have to show that what we're doing is we're being discerning, right? We aren't just giving you information, we're giving you connections, we're giving you on the ground resources. You know, any old random blogger person who's, you know, someone who decides they're going to go to Portugal can start a blog about moving to Portugal. But you know, how credible is that person? We don't know. Do they have, you know, other things going on? Are they selling real estate on the side? Are they, you know, running a tour company? Is it objective or not objective? How useful will it be for you? You don't necessarily know. And so we've had to kind of shift the way we talk about ourselves to really highlight some of the stuff that we always did, but we didn't make such a big deal of because it didn't occur to us to, and we maybe didn't have to. So now, you know, we have this network of people. We've been writing about this stuff for almost 45 years, right? We know things about these countries that someone who's just popped in for 2 months and decides to start a blog, they don't know. And so we've had to kind of move toward talking more in our marketing about how you're joining a network when you join International Living. You're becoming a member of a group of people who is like-minded and who can help each other. And that's sort of something we never had to sell before. Before we talked about just, we're going to give you a newsletter, right? We're going to give you a magazine. We're going to tell you the information. Now you're becoming part of a group and you're in the family, so to speak, and we're going to help you. And that's been a little bit of a shift. The core ideas, though, are very much still the same. We're still selling that same dream. We're just talking about the features a little bit differently.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the evolution of that. Because when you started, you meant, right, there was no internet. You couldn't Google it. There wasn't a ton of books at the library. Then obviously the biggest start of it in my assessment would have been like Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, you know, telling everybody you could go live anywhere. And then obviously that took a quantum leap forward with the advent of stuff like Airbnb, where all of a sudden now I could go, it was easy to rent for a couple of days or rent for a week or rent for a month in another country.
Yeah, it's easier than ever to do what we are talking about. It's never been, I mean, there's more information out there and infrastructure's improved around the world. I mean, you remember, it used to be when the first time that I lived in France, to call home, I had to go, you know, to a payphone, and you did it on a Sunday, so it was less expensive, and you called back home, right? You know, that doesn't exist anymore. Now you can just get on the phone, you can get on, FaceTime with your grandkids, your feet can be in the sand on the beach in Belize. Like the whole sort of that idea that going abroad for a long period of time is really a separation, that it was this huge leap of faith. It's much less of a leap of faith now. And so now I think that the challenge is that there's, in some ways, there's so much more information out there that the challenge for the reader, the challenge for our members is to figure out what's credible and what's not, what's really useful to them and what's not. And that's where we come in, because we can give you what's really happening on the ground. And we're not just sort of saying like, I went to this one town, so I think it's great. We're asking around. We are spending extended periods of time in these countries so that we can give real information about it, not just one random person's assessment. So I think that the way we market, we have to distinguish ourselves in the marketplace in a way we never did in the past, because we were the only ones doing it. Now lots of people are doing it.
Absolutely. And I think let's talk a little bit about how you got there.
How international living, how we got to where we are now.
How you got to international living.
That's actually a really funny story. Well, I was living in Baltimore and I was looking at, I had been living overseas. I'd lived overseas multiple times. I was in the Peace Corps when I was after college. And so I lived in Africa, and I speak French and a very poor dialect of Swahili. And I was working for a magazine that was a startup. Some Business Week guys had started up an international business magazine. And I could see the writing on the wall. They were going to run out of money. But on the side, I was volunteering for the local NPR station. I was helping write their newsletter, because I didn't know anyone when I moved to Baltimore. And I figured everyone at the magazine was like, 50-year-old men, and I didn't have any friends. So I was like, I got to go find my people. So I went and I volunteered to write this newsletter for the NPR station. And when I could see that, I was like, I don't even know if they'll make payroll. Like, this is crazy. So I decided I better ask my people, does anyone have a job for me? And it was a whole bunch of women who wrote in Baltimore. They worked for Johns Hopkins, and they worked for the Sun, and they were just writers and editors in Baltimore. And so one of them worked at Agora and called me the next, a few days later and said, hey, I was talking to another friend of mine, and she says that they have this publication at this place called Agora, and you'd be perfect for it. So they're having this party. You want to go? And I said, yeah, that sounds great. And I said, well, when is it? She says, oh, it's in like an hour. And I'm like, an hour? Okay. So I throw some decent clothes on. She came to pick me up, and I basically crashed a cocktail party and got a job. So it's a classic Agora story, actually. But I was quite qualified for this job, mind you. I was working in an international magazine, and I was an editor before that. And so was well traveled. So that's how I ended up at Agora. And I've just been in international living all this time. I took a little bit of a break when I had my kids, but otherwise I've been at IL, and I have this, I think, a kind of like-minded vision for what IL is with Bill. It aligns with what the original vision of what IL is, I think, in a lot of ways. So yeah, that's how I got there.
Your passion is obvious. What do you like best about what you're doing?
I think that people are so stuck in the narratives that they have been fed, and feel like they do not have the flexibility that they actually do have. I think that in part of a core to what we do at International Living is to talk about how affordable life is in other places around the world, and not just affordable, but the pace tends to be saner. People tend to be, life in the US today it's pretty divisive. We just went through this election cycle, and oh my goodness, right? People are stressed out. And, you go and you spend, even if you're spending a month someplace else, you can decompress in a way I think it's really hard to do in the United States, and you can afford to do it. We're fed this kind of commentary that this is the life you have, this is what it looks like. And I think at IL, that we try to change that narrative. We're very much invested in saying look, you've got options nobody else is telling you about. And we can show you not only what those options are, but we will take you by the hand and we will show you how to take advantage of them. So that could be to go, live in Portugal, as you've mentioned Portugal earlier. it is really not as expensive to live in Portugal as it is to live in the United States. And people cannot get that through their heads. Like, that just seems crazy to folks, but it is the truth. And that is true in all of the countries that we talk about, anywhere from Malaysia to Costa Rica, to Panama, to France, to Italy. I mean, you can live a very comfortable life for less than it costs you to stay home. And so I just feel like I'm on a mission to help people understand that, whether they do it or not. I think we live in a global world, and people should understand how wonderful that world is. We have so much more in common with people around the world than not. And I don't know, I guess it's important for folks to understand that.
Amen to all of that. Well, we know your time is incredibly valuable. We greatly appreciate you spending some with us. I could spend hours, if not days, over obsessing over all things international living. For our folks watching and listening who want to learn more, where is the best place for them to go?
Yeah, go to internationalliving.com, and we have a free e-letter. It goes out every day. By all means, sign up for that. And we have a magazine. You'll be offered the magazine when you go to our website. But by all means, sign up for our free e-letter, because it's free, and I think you'll like it.
All right. I will agree to that 100%. You will absolutely like it. I have been a subscriber to the magazine for many, many, many years, including back when it was a newsletter. So this has been Seth Green with Jennifer Stevens from International Living. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks everybody for watching or listening. We will talk to you or see you next time.
Do you need money to fund your idea, product, or service? Are you ready to take your business to the next level, but need capital to get it done? Kevin Harrington has heard more than 50,000 pitches and knows how to help you make the perfect pitch to get the funding for your entrepreneurial dream. He's distilled the process down in his perfect pitch cheat sheet, and it's yours for free. Just text PITCH to him right now at 727-888-2100. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 right now and claim your free perfect pitch cheat sheet. Text PITCH to 727-888-2100 to start funding your dream today.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.